how are we redefining success on our own terms? So, this conversation is for Black women healing, specifically from overworking, from performing, from seeking external validation. And I'm so glad to have a lovely guest here with me today, Vonnie Williams of Hey Von on YouTube. But if you're new to this channel, my name is Marissa Price. I'm a healing practitioner, creating safe spaces on the internet for Black women to heal, to process what we've been through, to share resources and knowledge with each other. And so, yeah, please subscribe if you're not already to my YouTube channel. If you're watching LinkedIn, please feel free to connect with me there. But with that, I will pass it over to Vonnie to introduce herself and tell us about her channel.
Hi everyone. Hello. My name is Vonnie and my channel is called Hey Von. And on my channel, I just talk about my journey to living a joyful life. And when I say joyful, I mean a life that I'm proud of, a life that I don't want to say I'll never have regrets because I think regrets are a very human part of living. A life that I could look back on and say, I did the best I can with what I had, and I had love, and I had community, and I had support. And I talk about those things. I talk about the things that I've been through in my life, and I talk about not only I talk about, I invite people on a journey of also redefining their lives and redefining what joy and success means for them today, which is very appropriate. So what we're going to be talking about today with Marissa. So really excited.
Yes, I love that. I love, and I see Elise in the chat. Hello. Yes, I'm here but working, so I won't be active in the chat as much, but I'm listening. Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate
Yeah.
it. And Dr. Maya, hello, hello.
Hi,
Thank you
Dr.
for being
Maya.
here. Yes. And I should say we're both a part of a YouTube kind of like support group for Black women
Mhm.
creators that Dr. Maya created. So, yes, just being here in the presence, especially like the presence of all of us as creators, kind of like
Yes.
commenting on each other's channels, sharing each other's videos. It's such a special group to be a part of. So just
Yeah.
want to say that. Yes,
It
yes.
really is.
Hello, hello. But yeah, I do want to ask to kick it off, being socialized to overextend ourselves, to overachieve. This is something that I've been grappling with, and I just made a post about this on LinkedIn. The
Mhm.
pressure that I felt from kindergarten, even before then, if
Mhm.
I really think about it, to overachieve, to seek external validation through academic awards, accolades, to get the stamp of approval. And I just want to ask, like, is this something that you experience too? And if so, how are you shedding this in this new phase of life?
Mhm. Okay, so full disclosure, I don't know if I'm ever able going to fully shed it like 100%. And maybe that's not the goal, right? Maybe the goal is like 85 or 90. I think for me, very much have experience with this because I'm West African, I'm Ghanaian. I grew up with immigrant parents who worked hard, whose idea of success for us children was to work in STEM fields or to work in anything lucrative, right? Um, and that usually meant doctor, lawyer, working something in the sciences or technology. So we're taught from a very young age to very much go for these traditional markers of success. And what most people would consider overachieving, we just consider this like normal life. So like it is expected that you come home with mostly A's. I know if I came home with a B, my parents would be like, what happened to the other, what happened to the rest of your points, you know? And I don't think that they were doing this to be mean or to be hard. I think they just understood that like it's really hard in this country, especially if you're an immigrant, especially if you look like us, right? And they saw academics as a way to become upwardly mobile. So I think for me, I very much tied my idea of who I am and my idea of success to my academic achievements when I was younger. um, I was pre med in college. I switched over to psychology. My father was very, very disappointed. He was very upset with me. And I think he was upset because he felt like he had put in all this work to my education and I wasn't becoming, I wasn't following the children of African immigrants blueprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though I switched my major and, now I work in the marketing field, um, I still sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I still do feel like because I didn't go into STEM, because I didn't do a traditional career, you know, a lot of my friends who are also African are like lawyers and anesthesiologists, psychiatric nurses, right? Like they follow the plan and they stuck with it, right? And I did not. And sometimes I do feel like I have to overcompensate by like making sure I make a lot of money or something just because I didn't follow that plan. So that's what I mean by me feeling like not going to be able to like completely shed this
Mhm.
idea because it's not only ingrained in my family, it's ingrained in my culture. But I think I have made peace with the fact that like my I don't want to say purpose, my work is not going to be in STEM. It's supposed to be doing something creative, like, you know, just some of my art back here, right? Like I am an artist at heart. And I feel like for me, I'm okay with breaking down that stereotype of being, you know, going to a STEM career if that means that like I can do the things that I want to do and the things that I'm honestly better at, right? The things that I enjoy doing. Growing up, you know, my parents never liked their jobs. They felt like a job was just something you did to make money. Um, and I adopted a little bit of that. I don't think that like your job should be your life or your purpose. Like I don't believe my purpose is to work. So I
Mm.
am happy that they kind of instilled that part in me, like, you know, your job is in your life. But I do want to do things that I enjoy. And so for me, especially over these last like 5, 10 years, I just really been honest with myself and saying, like, yeah, I could be a doctor, but like that's not what I wanted. What do I actually want and how do I get there and still make money, right? Like I have to live without without giving in into unfettered capitalism and all that entails.
Ooh, yes. And I do want to say before we move forward, sorry, Elise, thank you so much for creating the group. I did not know that. Yes, actually, I created the group with Dr. Maya's partner to help facilitate and hold space, and is definitely an integral leader in our beautiful space. We wouldn't be us without her. Yes, yes. So thank
Uh,
you so much, Elise, for creating that. And my apologies. Yes, Sade, hello, welcome, welcome. But you said so many things.
and I said a lot.
Ooh, I want to. I want to talk about being a creative, right? Because Glamazidi on YouTube, Rushni Cope, she just made a post about this. The message that she received that artists don't make money, and how
Mm,
that really like warped her sense of what she could pursue as a career. And so I want to ask that how you're able to hold on to the creative part of yourself, because there's so many forces out here that are telling us these messages, right? That we
mm.
must go to, as you mentioned, something like a STEM field, versus like holding on to these parts of ourselves, like who we're created to be. How have you managed to do that?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yes, the starving artist stereotype, that trope is definitely real. I think for me, I had no choice but to be creative. I felt like I was always a creative kid, but because I was good at science, I was good at writing, I was always kind of steered towards those things. It wasn't until the pandemic, when we couldn't go anywhere, that I really started to tap into my creativity. I started off by doing watercolor. And then I think I realized that like, oh, I'm actually like a creative. Like I can say that I am, and I never felt that way until I actually started doing more creative things. So I really feel like the pandemic was kind of like the start, like the impetus of me like really being more serious about like my art as a creative, my writing as a creative, and even calling myself a creative. I have friends who are artists, and sometimes when I meet their friends, they're like, "Oh, are you an artist?" And I'm like, yes. And then I hesitate because once again, capitalism, the tentacles of capitalism, right, are always like
Yes.
around us. And I
Mhm.
hesitate because I feel like, yes, I make art, but I don't make money from it. So am I an artist? Because I don't sell anything, right? But once again,
Mhm.
no one says I have to sell art to call myself an artist. But I feel like because I don't make a living from doing art and I've never sold my art, that I'm not an artist. And I think that now the beautiful thing about social media, right, is that we see artists who make money, right? We see artists who do all kinds of like beautiful things and are able to carve out a living for themselves. I remember, was it 1 or 2 years ago at like Miami's Art Basel, someone taped a banana to a wall and like
Yes.
for like so someone can take a banana to a wall for $3 million. Why can't I call myself an artist? You know, and
Yes.
so sometimes when you hear it, like even the ridiculous things like that, you're like, listen, I'm an artist. Like if all it takes is taking fruit on the wall, like I'm good.
Yeah.
Um, and, this is something that I'm really cognizant of because my sister, my younger sister, she goes to like one of the best art schools in the world, and I had to talk to my mom about that. She was like, "She gonna make money?" I said, "She will make money. Like she has no choice. A, she'll be fine, and two, like I don't want to put that in my sister's head that like pursuing art isn't something that can pay her bills and also like make her happy, um, because a lot of this stuff is mental, right? A lot of this stuff is if you believe that something's going to happen, it'll happen. If you don't, you don't. I don't want to
Mm,
oversimplify life, but a lot of it is like success is not really about talent; it's about tenacity, right, and perseverance. We know a lot of successful people who aren't the most talented, right, but they kind of stuck out things.
mhm,
And I feel like that's more important to instill in my sister, not not telling her that like, oh, like, yeah, you're not going to make money as an artist, but telling her like, yeah, you are going to make money and you are going to have
mhm,
hard times, but you have to, if this is what you really want, you have to stick to it.
mm, mhm. That's so true. The belief, like holding on to the belief, especially now as an entrepreneur over the past like 2.5 years. And Vonnie is part of my community, Black Women Freelancers, and she'll
Yes.
be leading a special session, which I'll mention in a second. But holding on to the belief, right, as we experience like the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, of freelancing, um, I want to ask how you've been able to do that, right? Because that can be the hardest part of sustaining the journey, being
Yeah.
rooted in your skill set and your talents. Which is why when you mention like your art is up on your wall, I'm like, oh yeah, she's an artist. You just have the vibe of an artist.
Thank
But how
you.
you, yes, but how you've managed to stay rooted in your skill set despite like the ups and
Mhm.
downs that come with, I guess, freelancing, entrepreneurship, or being a creative in general.
Mm. Well, if Felice is still here, she knows. I was not having a good day today. I woke up and I was like, Earth is very ghetto right now, and maybe I want to leave. Maybe it's time for me to depart. Um,
Yes.
but to that end, I think this also acknowledging that I have good days and bad days. For me, entrepreneurship has taught me that like if I was successful once, I can do it again. And just because I'm having a low, just because I have to pivot doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful. It just means that like I know what the F is going on with the economy and I'm going to do what I can to write it out. And when things get better, I'll be back. And that's really hard for me to think about sometimes when I see other people, particularly artists that I know who are successful, who are thriving. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I think positively all the time. Sometimes I'm just like, I get sad. I'm like, how come this person is doing really well and like I'm not? And my friends are very, very talented people. I want to put that out there. But like sometimes I do feel a sadness. Sometimes I do feel like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Right. Um, and I think how I stay rooted, talking to my friends like Halise, talking to people who honestly are going to make me feel better, right? Like I said, I still have this little tiny voice in the back of my head that's like, if you became a doctor like your father wanted you to, you'd be okay, right? But I may be okay financially, but for sure I would have been miserable mentally, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think when I think about being rooted, I have to remember that things are going to be okay. And this is something that Halise reminded me of today. I don't know when the hour or time that okayness will happen. Um, but in the meantime, I've been really cognizant of my health, physical health and mental health. Our health is something that we can control somewhat, right? Like, we can eat healthy, we can do all the things, but if a chronic illness wanted to happen to you, it can happen to you, right? And so when I think about the things that I can have some control over, I'm like, you know what? I can't control what's going to happen to me health wise, but what I can do is take a walk in my neighborhood, right? Enjoy the fresh air or go to the gym. Um, Mental health is also something that's really tenuous, right? And
Mhm.
so, a lot of us Black women, we struggle with our mental health. And, that's through no fault of our own. Like, in no way am I saying that we can control our physical and mental health 100%, right? But I can try to eat as nutritiously as possible. I can talk to a friend instead of like spiraling, right? Um, I do a lot of free things. I live in an area where there's a lot of free things. I tell myself that joy is resistance, that,
Mhm.
traditionally in this country, people that look like me, white people empowered, then I feel like I deserve joy or peace or
Yeah.
love or any one of those things. And I tell myself that operating in peace and joy and community is resistance. Making sure that my mental health is as top tier as possible is resistance. Being optimistic about life is resistance. And so I think of being rooted not just has a personal mission, but has like a community, societal mission. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm good, then my people are good, right? If I can show my people that, like, my friends, that like we're going to make it, maybe I can inspire them to, also kind of like look at things from a different perspective. And, we all have our days where we feel down. We're all going to be there to like lift each other up as we climb. Um, so how I stay rooted is just to remember that, like, I don't want to be downtrodden all the time. Like I said, I think living a joyful life as a Black woman in America is resistance. Um,
Mhm.
and I try to remember that, like, joy is my birthright. I deserve to be here. I deserve to be human. I deserve to love and be loved and exist. Um, Not because of anything that I did, just because I was born, and we all do.
Cool.
Um, and that's what I try to remember, even on days like this where I woke up and I was just like, Lord, when is it going to be my time?
I appreciate your transparency in sharing that. And I think a lot of us are on the wavelength of knowing or like coming into the realization that we are always worthy. We've always been worthy. We've
Mm,
been sold this idea that we have to earn our worth, right?
mhm,
Particularly as Black people, particularly as Black women, through our labor for other people, through the value that we provide, right? And it's just coming to the fact that no, the fact that you're on earth, you're worthy, period, right? No matter what you do or don't do.
mhm,
And just sitting with that. Because I know for me, that has created a spiral of mental health, right? When I've tried to chase my worth outside of myself and
mm.
have it in people's hands to like, please give it to me, right?
Yes.
Coming to
Mhm,
the understanding that no, I'm worthy inherently. Um, and so how did you make it to that point, right? Because there are so many messages that we receive that we have to do
mhm.
this thing outside of ourselves. Just coming to the fact that no, you're inherently worthy. Anything you want to share around that?
Oh, that's another great question. I like to make it seem like, I woke up one day and was like, I am worthy. But I think after years, decades, most of my life, chasing external validation, wanting to get approval by like family, certain friends. I think once again during the pandemic, when you're home during a global daily pandemic, it does make you think about a lot of things. Um, and to be honest, I got tired. I got tired of like the mind effery that I was putting myself through. I got tired of like the repeating thoughts that I had on loop about like my life and my worth and who I was. At that time, I wasn't working in tech. I was working this job that I literally gave like 2 days notice. I had come from very like oh, thank you, Anthony. I had came from very toxic working environments in tech where my worth as a worker was tied into who I am and how people respected me. And I think I internalized all of that, even though I felt like I thought I didn't, but I did. But I think during the pandemic, I don't know. I don't remember the day, but I remember the feeling saying like F this. Like I'm so tired of like telling myself that I'm not worthy, um, that I'm not a good person, that I'm stupid because like I made one mistake at work, even though like I don't, as Black women, we know that we're very thorough at our jobs, right? And just
Mhm.
kind of sitting back and saying like, I think I told myself this is not the way I want to live for the rest of my life. Like I don't want to be 60 years old going through like this mental mind loop. So like what am I going to do to change things? And it took a while. Like we're 2025 now. I feel like I'm in a great space where like I understand who I am as a person. I understand that I am a wonderful person. I am an excellent person. But I'm also deeply flawed, right? And I think that took me a while to realize the wonderful person part because I was always so focused on how I was so deeply flawed because people were kind of like pointing that out to me, right? Um, and then one day I was just like, you know what, you actually are a great person. And people can confirm that to me, right? Like my family and
Mhm.
friends, um, people that I meet on the street who tell me that, there's something about me that's really welcoming and nice. And I chose to like focus on those things. Um, because it's really easy, right? Our minds default to the negative a lot. But I had done that for so many years that like I think my mind was just like, all right, girl, like we're tired.
Mhm.
When are we gonna change the mental loop so that we can start thinking positively?
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. That resonates so much. And I just want to read this comment from Prophet Mother. Hello, yes, right. We are born worthy. When did we first
Mm,
learn otherwise? That's the
mm,
question, right? Because I've had the same
mm,
loops, and I'm just coming out of the end of my group healing program, Silence Your Inner Critic, where we talked about these things, right? Who gave us these messages?
mm.
Um, when did we receive them? When did they start on a playback loop internally to where we're criticizing ourselves, we're doubting our own self worth?
Yeah.
And so often these are voices that we have internalized over the course of our lives. And as you said, like just getting to the point, like I'm tired of repeating this to myself on a loop, right? Because it's
Yeah.
draining my energy, it's putting me to a spiral, it's blocking what I want to do in life. And I think that's so brave, right? To say, no, I'm actually going to turn that down, right? I'm going to turn that down, I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to lean into who I am authentically. So I do want to ask, as you mentioned, like success being sustainable. Um, and I think part of this is being in tune or in line, in alignment with what you're called here to do. And so
Mm,
I want to ask about that because so often, like as you said, we're pushed into these fields, we're pressured to do something that makes money under capitalism, as you said, just leaning into who you were called here to be, like really walking in alignment in order for your life to be sustainable, in order for you to be well, so that you can show up, right, for your community. Anything you want to share around that?
ooh, okay. So many thoughts. My first thought, and I haven't shared this. I don't think I've ever shared. I haven't shared this in a while. I'm not a deeply religious person, um, but maybe like a week or so before I was supposed to go to college, I had this like very like odd dream. It was like the world was ending. It was like Armageddon style, like things were falling apart, literally and figuratively.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
remember being like on top of a building, and God or whoever was out there was like, "You're meant to change the world. You're meant to change lives." And I will never forget that dream. And at that time, I thought it meant like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be a doctor. Like I'm pre-med anyway. Yay. But now that I'm not a doctor, um, I still think about that dream every once in a while. And I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is on earth. I know one of my primary purposes on earth is to be joyful and live joyfully because I don't know when I'm gonna, go on to glory. So I'm trying to make this life as great as possible. Um,
Mhm.
but then I also think I'm like, I know I'm supposed to make an impact in people's lives. I honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how. Like, I think that the YouTube was a great start. It's been on my mind and my heart to start my YouTube for over a decade now.
Mhm.
Um, and then something was finally like, you need to do that YouTube ASAP. And so I just finally listened to that voice. So when you're talking about sustainability, for me, not to sound very woo-woo, it's like listening to that voice, listening to that like voice that has not left my head since that dream and said like you're supposed to impact lives. I don't know how. I don't know the vehicle that I'm supposed to be using, but my hope, my dream is that like my YouTube is helpful, my Substack is
It
helpful.
is.
I do feel like my words, I think I was gifted with the gift of gab. You know, I'm a certified yapper, but I'm also a certified writer, right? I write professionally. And I do feel like my words are supposed to heal, are supposed to inspire, are supposed to connect. Um, I don't know how all of that's going to tie together eventually. I don't know if that answers
Hmm.
the question, but
It does. It does. And yes, I did link your Substack in the chat too. So please follow Vonnie on Substack.
yes.
Unbothered and Moisturize, which is like the best Substack title of all time.
Thank you.
So yes, so please subscribe to Vonnie. But yes, ooh, this is bringing up so many things. And I think, like as you mentioned, like the system of capitalism that we're under, that is so incredibly oppressive, right, to our dreams, our creativity. And so we're told that we can't follow these things, and when we do, sometimes the road is very difficult because of the conditions that capitalism has created.
Yep.
um, and so I want to ask, like, how, I don't know, how we dismantle it. How do we, like, our points of, as you mentioned before, like the points of intervention that you mentioned, like in your well-being, in your life, like identifying, I can do this to invite enjoy to my life, to
Mhm.
prioritize my mental health, like the small parts, um, kind of zooming out to the larger systems that we're in. How do we
Mm,
identify our places, the points where we can intervene to
mm,
make sure that our dreams stay alive, right? Because there's
exactly.
all these forces trying to crush them.
Mhm.
Anything you want to share?
Okay. I got my like this answer. I don't think we can ever fully dismantle capitalism as it is
Mm,
practiced in America.
mhm,
And I don't say that to be a Debbie Downer. I say that as someone, you know, who lives in this world. You know, we all know who we're under right now, right?
mhm,
The other day I was thinking about this. I used to live in Mexico City back in 2023, and prior I go back and forth a lot. And I've been watching a lot of like Brazilian content because I'm trying to learn Brazilian Portuguese. And you know, the idea of sobremesa, the idea of kind of like, you know, you're in Guadalajara, so you understand like the kind of like slow living. And the other
mhm,
day I thought about it and I was like, I don't know you can if you can have slow living under that kind of slow living that you see in like Mexico and other places, Latin
mm,
America, right? I don't know if we can have that underneath unfettered capitalism, right?
mhm.
Because the only people that really have that are the people who are in the top fraction of a percent. And even those people are always constantly worried about their money, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can relax, but you're always worried about whether, you know, you're going to have as many billions have just Bezos, right? Like, no one can escape unfettered capitalism, no matter how much money you make. Um, with that being said, I'm trying to incorporate more of my life that I had in Mexico City in America.
Mm,
So for me, um, sometimes it's as simple as like planning a happy hour with friends and making sure I don't have anything like afterwards. Or if I do, giving myself a buffer, right? Just giving myself time to like relax. For me, especially in this time, it is being in community. It is talking to one, I think 2 weeks ago, I talked to my friend for 8 hours. I talked to her for the whole day. I ate,
wow. Mhm.
went out, came back, right? It just felt very much like high school.
Yeah.
So for me, it is reclaiming my time in a way that is very community minded, in a way that's kind of like languid and slow and a little bit relaxed. Like I said, I don't know if I could get my Mexico City life and how I feel Mexico City completely here because this is a completely different system, right? Than
Mhm.
Mexico, Latin America, even certain countries in Europe. But I can try to imitate. I can try to imitate that, right? I can hang out with a friend and be like, hey, do you want to go for a walk afterwards? Or like go out for a drink afterwards, right? I can lately I've been making it a practice to actually practice my art more. So I want to try to do something like every week or every weekend. Um, being mindful of like doom scrolling, being in virtual groups. Like I love our group every Wednesday. Like I look forward to that so much. Like if I can't make it,
Mhm.
it's because I have something else to do. But like reclaiming my time and being intentional about it, making sure that my time is beneficial to myself and or my community. That's how I feel like we can kind of sustain ourselves and keep our joy under capitalism. Because if you don't, you're always going to be busy, right? You know, so many people
Yes.
claim that they're so busy that they can't attend to their friends, they can't attend to their family, but it's like, are you really busy or are you just not prioritizing, right? We have to make each other our priority. We have to make ourselves and we have to make our people our priority. That's how I feel we're going to be able to sustain ourselves um, underneath capitalism. This is me, you know, we all go live in a commune and like all wear all white every day. Like maybe, maybe not. But
I'm
like
down.
I'm wearing white, so like I'm down too.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe we can all live close to each other, or maybe we can make it a point to keep in contact with our friends more,
Hmm.
our family more. Maybe instead of going to vacation in the Maldives, like spending some of that money to go see your friends that you haven't seen in a while, right? I think we live in a world very much plagued by social anxiety, and
Yeah.
we live in a very individualistic society. And I
Hmm.
we forget that as human beings, as animals, we are social animals and we do need each other no matter how introverted you are, you think you are. And I think tapping
Hmm.
into that social power is what's going to sustain all of us, honestly, in
Hmm.
this capitalist society.
That is such a great point. Yes. Community. Community is, I think it's going to become even more essential as
Yes.
we see what's happening, to be able to, like you said, like call up a friend and spend the whole day, right? Just talking and processing what is happening, because
Hmm.
we're not meant to live in silos. As
Nope.
being in the West, like we're taught, as you said, very hyper individualistic. That is just you. That is
And your
just what
family is
you're.
that, right. Mhm.
Yes. And even like going back, I had a thought, but it left. Like going back to like the pressure to be in a certain field, I feel is very individualistic too sometimes, because it's like, how much money can you make in this for you? And it's never presented as like giving back to your community, giving back your knowledge.
Mm,
When you're really aligned with what you're doing, I feel like that's so much easier to do, right? To give back to people, to share information, knowledge,
right.
because you're filled up, like your well is filled up, versus being in a field where it's extracting from
Mm,
you. Like you said, like entering into medicine, like I was in the business field before, and how incredibly draining that was so
mhm.
often. And now just coming back into my creativity, my creative gifts, has allowed me to be a much better community member. So I'm just like putting those dots together. It's so true.
Yeah, like
So true.
like I said, I don't believe our jobs to serve, give us purpose in life, but I do feel like our jobs hopefully can give us the time, like you mentioned, to pour into one another, right? Whether it's financially, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? Like our jobs shouldn't drain, oh, Elise, our jobs shouldn't drain us so much that we have nothing to give afterwards, right? Um,
Yeah.
I'm not the person, like to me, a job is a job. Like, are you paying me? You're giving me my benefits? Are you not stressing me out? We're good to go. Because at the end of the day, I know that I have a life outside of work.
Mhm.
And I want to honor that. That's very important to me. That's in some ways more important than making money. Like, I just have to make money because I live in America and like, we don't use cowrie shells anymore to bargain. Like I gotta have dollars. So that's why I work. But I like you said, right? We
Mhm.
the goal, right, is to be givers of knowledge, receivers of knowledge, right? To be able to pour into each other and live better, right? Like that to me is what living well is.
Yeah. Ooh, yes. Knowledge sharing, tapping into our gifts. What this is bringing up is the larger system of colonialism, right? Which is a huge topic,
Mm,
huge topic. But we're seeing the ramifications in it continuously, right? With this
mm,
fear that we have of tapping into our power, of refusing, or like the message that we're taught is that we can't tap into our creativity, We have to be individuals, not think about how things are impacting other people. We have to cut off our emotions and not feel when we see people being impacted by them.
Mm,
And it's just, it goes against humanity,
yeah.
right? And just everything you're mentioning, I'm just realizing like how we should absolutely be able to do this. That's what we're created to do. But these systems have kind of gotten in the way and created these
Mm,
barriers that we're not able to fulfill like the purpose that is calling to us, and it won't quiet down, right? Because it was put in us for a reason.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think about this with the news, right? Like we get very numb, right? And like you said, it's this country in particular, the West in particular, this country
Hmm.
is designed for us to feel numb, right? And to use substances to kind of like make ourselves even number, right? It's made so that we feel like our fellow humans are our adversaries instead of like
Yeah.
fellow people in the fight who are like also living on this earth, which is warming up every second, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think that is the power of capitalism, right? Is having
Yeah.
us all think that like you should be out for yourselves and like your immediate family, right?
Yeah.
If you have an immediate family, and not to care, right? To mind your own business, right? When it comes to
Hmm.
things. And that's not how the rest of the world works, right? That's not how the global south works.
Hmm.
Um, and people can say what they want about the global south in developing countries, which is another problematic term.
Hmm.
Like those people have it right. Like they understand what it means to be in community. They understand what it means to have family, to live multiple generations, right? Intergenerationally. They understand what it means to not have a lot, but to have joy and to have love because they understand that like you may not have been able to fully control the hand that life dealt you, but you know what? You're going to live your life with as much effing joy as possible because you know that some things are not going to change. But you know what? You know what you can control?
Hmm.
Family, your friend. Well, not your family, but friends, the people you surround yourself with, how you look at the world. You know, like
Hmm.
they understand that here, and we don't, and that's not our fault. Like that's by design. Like you said,
Hmm.
we we are told that our worth is intrinsically tied to how much money we earn. Um, and if you don't earn enough money, whatever enough is, that like you're not a worthy person. That you're not even a person, right? You're nothing. That's not how it is in
Yes.
other countries, right?
Hmm. That is so true. Um, that if you don't make money, you don't generate income, then you're nothing,
Right.
right?
You're not
That's the.
right? If you're
Hmm.
not being a resource, if you're not being an appliance, right? If you're not being used as a tool for someone else's advancement.
Yes. An appliance. Ooh. Yes. Yes. Um, and I want to mention this comment by Halise. Yes, I'm a big fan of dreams. You have impacted lives, and I'm overwhelmed with mixed feelings about how you show up and how that inspires, and how you don't know this. It's like happiness and sadness. Yes. So giving
Thank
you your flowers, right?
you.
Seriously.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, everything that you have shared, the way that you show up as a community member, the things that you contribute, that opens our minds and understanding
No,
of the things
thank
that are
you.
happening. That's not small. That's not small. So just want to give you your flowers. Yes.
I appreciate that. I'm trying not to get
Yeah.
teary eyed, but I need to.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Um, and you mentioned, right, travel. And I want to talk about that too, like the impact that travel
Mhm.
has had on your life, and being able to see
Oh,
how people around the globe live differently. For me, this has really like solidified the fact that whatever is going on in the country where I was born, right, is flawed, deeply flawed. As
mm,
we're taught, as you said, that you have to earn your worth in order to feel like you're able to exist. When
mm.
that understanding just doesn't like, it doesn't exist outside of the US in so many
That
places,
ain't not
right?
gonna be there,
Inside the
right?
West. Yeah.
Mm,
So anything you want to share about the impact of travel has had on your life?
mm. Oh wow, this is you coming with the good questions today, Marissa. um, So I am fortunate that I was impacted by travel at like a very young age. So part of my childhood, I lived in Ghana, and I'm so happy I lived there when I was young enough to be very impressionable, but old enough to like remember lots of things. And I think learning from a young age that different does not mean bad, I think really helped shape who I am and my personality in lots of ways that I don't know if I would have this. I would like to think that I will still be a thoughtful, introspective person if I didn't spend part of my childhood in Ghana, but who knows? But I'm grateful for that experience anyway. I think when I came back to this country, it made me realize there was so many things about Ghana that like I loved, and that I was so fortunate to like live in a different country with a different set of values. Like I actually got to live them. I tell people I grew up in Ghana in America. Like my parents were very Ghanaian, but it's one thing to be very Ghanaian, and it's one thing to like live in Ghana and also have very Ghanaian people raising you, right? And I'm grateful. I live with my grandparents, my uncles. Like I said, live in that multi-generational household. So I think from a very young age, it molded me in ways that like I just started really understanding over the last like decade or so. I don't know, not that I took my upbringing for granted, but I think now that I'm older, right, your prefrontal cortex has, developed a lot.
Yes.
Start to think about these things. Um, and I think living in a different country as a child, like really just like sparked the seed. Yeah, travel does open up your life perspective. It really like stoked this like fire of curiosity in me, and like wanting to explore how other people live, wanting to learn new languages, wanting to understand different perspectives and like why people think the way they do. I don't always have to agree with it, of course, but I will love to understand why people think the way they do. In terms of travel, like I could talk about Mexico City. Like going to Mexico City changed my life, and I don't say this as a hyperbole at all. Um, I went to Mexico City honestly because I hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years at the time, and I lived in Houston, and I was like, where can I go that I'm not going to sit on a plane for like hours and be annoyed? And it was Mexico City, and I knew some people that went who I like, respect their travel style. And I went for 3 weeks, and I remember my last night I cried like a little baby, even though I was only an hour and a half away from home. Because they changed my life. I met one of my best friends who's Mexican on that trip, and we're best friends now. I met Halise. I met so many people in Mexico City. I loved Mexico City. It reminded me very much of Ghana. Mexico City to me is like Ghanaians who speak Spanish. Like the culture is very similar. Even some of the foods are like a little bit similar. The way time moves reminded me of Ghana as a childhood. And I'm really grateful. I'm really fortunate for the privilege of traveling. I know not a lot of people, yes, Houston, get to travel and experience that. But I think just being really curious at a young age and allowing that curiosity to guide me, kind of removing assumptions of like how I think certain countries should operate or behave, or people in this country should operate or behave. I think kind of helps me in my regular life, right? Just to see things with more nuance. Um, Especially being in Mexico, right? Where like a lot of Americans complain that like things are run differently there. And it's like, yeah, like Mexico's a different country. Like, of course things are run differently, right? Um, I don't think I would come, I don't know if I would have came to that understanding so quickly had I not lived in a country that has very similar culture and kind of like ways of living as a child.
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Maya says, traveling has saved my life. Vonnie Marissa is the one place I feel safe and comfortable. I really love experiencing different cultures and learning a new language, like Vonnie said. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It opens up so many things. And Mexico City was actually my first trip outside of the US, very first. Yeah, and it changed my life.
Good place.
Right.
How did it change your life? I'm curious.
The kindness. I think the kindness that people showed me, the level of openness and community without a second thought. It was just the default.
Yep.
Starting in the airport, right? Having people like look at my WhatsApp to see like where my taxi was. And I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, is this person going to try to take my phone? Because that's how I'm
Right.
wired, being
That's
from
how
the
we're
US.
wired
And
to
he's
think.
like, yeah. He's like, no, I'm trying to help you, like, find your. I was like, okay, thank you. But yeah, it's been a process of rewiring so many things, right? Coming back into the fact that nothing is wrong with me, I think,
Mhm.
because that was my transition out of a very traumatic work experience too, that trip. Um, so to see like, no, nothing is wrong with you. It's just the environment. And that was like the beginning of my understanding of what I was in, and also that other possibilities exist
Mm.
outside of that. Because when you're in it, it can feel like this is the only thing that
Yep.
you'll ever do. So you just have to hunker down,
Hmm.
suffer, self sacrifice. And that's where travel really opens up your perspective, right? To see, like, no, there are all these other ways of living, of doing things, of operating, of being in community that exist outside of what you're in.
Yep.
So, yeah, yeah.
It shows you all
Mm.
kinds of, I would say 8 billion people, 8 billion different realities, right? It just points you to a
Wow.
different reality that's just as valid as your own, right? And I think that's
Hmm.
the most beautiful things about travel. And now with globalization, I mean, globalization has its negatives, but one of the positives is that you can choose a different reality if you're able to plan, if you're able to have the money for it, right? If you have the skills, you can choose a reality that's different from your own, even if it's temporary.
Hmm. You can choose a reality different from your own. Gems. Yes, that's so true. Ooh, that's so true. Um, but yes, Bonnie will be a special guest speaker inside my community, Black Women Freelancers, next Tuesday, August 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I want to ask about your session that you will be facilitating called Redefine Success, Reclaim Joy for Black Women. Anything that you want to share about what people can look forward to?
Oh, well, it'll be good, number one, so please come. And number two, I'm just going to be sharing my journey into redefining success and redefining joy. Talk about why we think of success the way we do. Give some research backed things that we can do to reclaim our joy and success. So I'm not going to be like, oh, be grateful, guys. Like, yes, we all should practice gratitude. Like, it does work. But I really wanted to provide like research, empirically based things that we can do um, has women, has Black women to reclaim our joy. And also, I really hope that we, at the end of this session, that like people to change our mind, to deprogram, years, decades of capitalist thinking, right, takes a while, right? And there's
Mm.
some things that we're never going to fully get deprogrammed from, and that's just a part of living life as a human. I I want people to come out at least questioning why they've maybe taken the career path or why they felt like they had to be successful or why they felt success was the thing that they had to achieve to begin with, right? That popular adage, what is it? You have to work twice as hard, you have to be twice as good as the next person, in order to succeed, right? Like just kind of challenging those
Hmm.
assumptions and being like, what if it's okay for us to be average? What is like
A
what is
concept.
okay
Hmm.
to be like exceptional Black people, like
Hmm.
what is exceptionality giving us?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I want people to come. I want people to leave questioning success and maybe sitting down writing, whether it's in your journal, notes app, whatever, but like really writing and thinking about how they define success. Um, if they were on their deathbed and like I don't know, an angel came and showed them their life, would they be happy with
Hmm.
the way everything turned out before they go on to glory? Not to be morbid, but I think a lot about that. Like, our life, our vitality on earth isn't guaranteed. And I always think
Hmm.
to myself, like, do I want to leave this earth feeling like, okay, well, I did what everyone else wanted me to do, but I wasn't happy, or leave the earth and be like, you know what, I was happy, I really tried, even though I didn't, fit into
Hmm.
definitions of success. So I want people to leave thinking about what success actually means to them, and also maybe plant like a seed that hopefully germinates into what they want success to look like for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank
What
you.
success looks like for us, right? Because as you mentioned, there's been so much time spent trying to convince people, right, that we are worthy, um, when we've always been extraordinary,
Yeah.
right? We've always been gifted, been creative. Um, and it's just like a warped sense of reality that we're
Mm,
living in. And I think, I don't know what it is about, I do, but these times it's like the intensifying realization, right, of how deep these things go. Over
mm-hmm.
centuries, this has been instilled within us that we have to seek approval, um, affirmation, and like asking ourselves the question, like, does it ever truly come? And if not, like, what is the cost to our bodies, to our mental health, in the process of trying to achieve this approval, right? Because it was never about us in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Never.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't, like I said, I don't want to gloss over anything. When I think about work, when I think about, especially going back into the 9 to 5, I like you said, talking about approval and validation, like I do the minimum possible so that I can get paid, right? Like I am not doing anything more. I am not adopting the mannerisms of the majority. The majority population in this country. I'm not adopting their speech patterns. Like I have my own life. Like I would do the minimal necessary to make sure I get paid. But once the clock hits 5 o'clock or 5:30,
Mm-hmm.
it's me time. So and this is not me like championing assimilation.
Mm-hmm.
This is me saying we work in this system. How can we make the system work for us? And at the end of the day, if you know who you are, you do what you have to do to make your coin. So that maybe eventually you open up your own business, or maybe you buy a house so you can rent it out so that you can be your own boss, right? Like do what you need to do in your life to make sure that the life that you want to live, you're constantly moving towards it. That's how I look at life. I am not interested in adopting the culture, the mannerisms of the minority. I have my own culture. I have my own
Mm-hmm.
community. I have my own people. um I know what I need to do in order to get paid. But like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I have my own life. I have my own people. And that's how I see things. Like people love to use Black people, Black women has capital for our brains, for our resources, for our
Mm-hmm.
culture, for our
Yeah.
beauty, for the way we walk into a room. And I do feel like we also need to take advantage of that and get what we can from those
Mm-hmm.
people to make sure that our lives are good.
Mm-hmm.
Like extraction is not just going to be one way. You know, if they're going to extract, I'm going to try to extract what I can so that I can live my life. Because resources, knowledge, all that stuff comes at a price, and so you're going to pay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had to quote that. Yes. Extraction is not going to be one way. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I saw a question from Elise. Would you consider moving back to Ghana at any point?
No, it's so it's so expensive now. It's so it's it's really expensive, especially post the year of the return, post 2019. I mean, my family has a home
Mm.
there. Ghana will always be home. Also, like most of my life here is in the US. Um, and Ghana would be really far for me. So if I were to move internationally, I still want to be like somewhat close. From where I am, it's a 14 minute, I wish 14 minute, 14-hour flight. Um, yeah, no, it's just yeah. Ghana has become
Mm-hmm.
really popular with lots of expats, so prices have
Oh.
increased.
Mm.
The price
Mm-hmm.
has gone up, so yeah.
And I do want to ask about that. That could be a whole other video. But you mentioned Mexico City and now mentioning Ghana with the price increases, right? As more people are traveling, um, specifically like American travelers, and me having to be aware of like the privilege of being an American traveling the world. Um, Anything you want to share about that, right? With what we're
Mm,
seeing in Mexico City, and as you mentioned, Ghana.
hmm. I think what's happened in Mexico City is really interesting. You know, I'm not Mexican. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
speak for the
Mm-hmm.
Mexican population. You know, I prior to 2023, I had been going back and forth for about like 2 years, a little less than 2 years prior. I'll go for a couple of weeks at a time. And yeah, I've seen the prices in Mexico City go way up. I've seen apartment hunting is like insane now. Um, I think what's really interesting as a person who is Black, a person who's diasporic, a person who's American, like I can understand gentrification, um, but I also understand that I do have privilege, right? Because I have the blue passport privilege. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting because like tourism in Mexico City and Mexico at large isn't going to end, right? Um, and I have seen Americans and Europeans behave badly, so to speak, right? People bring in American mentality, American mannerisms to Mexico
Mm-hmm.
City. On the other hand, I do believe that there are Americans, there are foreigners who do want to integrate into the community, who do want to learn the language, who are respectful of the customs, um, and who want to contribute to the economy the best way that they can, right? Um, but that doesn't mean that gentrification isn't going to happen. I think it's an issue bigger than Americans and Europeans going to Mexico City. I think the issue with gentrification is also a political one. It's also,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the government is also
Mm-hmm.
involved, right? I think, and I'm trying to be careful with my words here because I want to be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's a bit unfair to blame something as macro as gentrification onto like just a tiny slice of like Americans and Europeans, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that Americans and Europeans don't act funky because they do. I've seen it.
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think to blame the huge issue of gentrification, which has so many other factors, and just distill it down to, oh, Americans and Europeans are here, I think kind of misses the nuance a bit
Mm-hmm.
of other factors that cause gentrification, not just in Mexico City, but in lots of areas in the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing that. I was curious since you mentioned like seeing the ramifications in Ghana. I think you mentioned the year of return. Is
Hmm.
that what's called in 2019? Okay.
So in
Yeah.
2019, I don't know who created this in the Ghana Tourism Board, but I hope they got like 5,000 promotions because they came up with this whole thing like Black Americans come home. We're doing a year of return. And I actually wanted to go and I wish I went because now it's just bananas. And they invited people from all over to come to Ghana and to celebrate. And I think ever since then, because Ghana is such a beautiful country, it's a peaceful country. You know, Ghanaians are we're very chill people. Sometimes we're too chill, but we're like very like relaxed. We're very like, oh, you know, life is just life. I think people are just attracted to that lifestyle, right? Not saying that it's not hardships. It is a different country, you know. Our
Mm-hmm.
primary language is English, and most people don't really speak English. You know, we have our own pre-colonial languages. We have our own original
Mm-hmm.
languages.
Right.
Um, you know, it's funny because I have people that went and they're like, they see way more Americans than they do Ghanaians, especially during that time. It's called and
Mm-hmm.
okay, there
Oh,
you
sorry.
go. Yeah, which is interesting because growing up in Ghana, I barely saw Americans. It just wasn't a thing. But like I said, whoever on the tourism board thought about the year of return, they did a good job.
Wow.
Because pre 2019,
Mm-hmm.
Ghana was nowhere near as crowded. The only people that really went to Ghana was like, you know, diaspora folks, maybe
Mm-hmm.
somebody like me, maybe like a friend who wasn't Ghanaian will want to come, during December, that kind of thing. But now it's become a much bigger movement. So,
Interesting. I had
and
no
like,
idea.
yeah, I was
Hmm.
reading this article. Was it in the New Yorker or something? And they were saying how like people are promising like expats parcels of land, but some of that parcel of land are like sacred parcels of land or like land that has already been given to like Ghanaians. So there's this whole kind of like, I
Mm.
don't want to say clash, this whole kind of like thing of like people trying to, I think people want to build. I think people love Africa and love Ghana because like everyone looks like us, right? There is,
Mm.
you deal with different a set of problems, but it's not racism. Um,
Hmm.
and I think I get why people want to be a part of that, but I also think as well, Ghana is also a relatively small country, right? Especially compared to like maybe Nigeria, other bigger countries in Africa. So it's not like, not like this land in abundance. So I think people are trying to figure out like how to accommodate people who came to Ghana and fell in love and want to make it a home, um, while also respecting the fact that like Ghanaians like live there, and we have our own culture, we have our own set of norms, we have our own ways of doing things. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think a really interesting kind of like inflection point right now.
Hmm. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, yeah, I had absolutely no idea um, that that was taking place in Ghana. So I will be doing my research after this. I appreciate you
Mhm.
saying that. But yes, I do want to be respectful of your time. I know we're at an hour, but as we wind down, I guess just any wisdom you want to share. If someone's watching this video and they're still kind
Mhm.
of maybe like repeating on a loop, um, that they're not successful as it's been defined, and it's so tied into the American dream, which is false, as we've seen, right, so often, and just ways that they can kind of like repeat something on loop that is positive and affirming for their journey. Anything that you want to share around that?
Ooh. It's not your fault. Like, we live in a society for a reason.
Hmm.
Um, I think, Dr. Maya, we had a talk of like anti-blackness, right? Like all these things that we think about that are not so great. I don't know who the commenter who mentioned before, like, where do we get this stuff from? Like, we're not born with this, right? Like, we're not born with all of these thoughts, right? We come to this world a beautiful little blank baby slate.
Hmm.
Indoctrinated, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, I think realizing that it's not your fault and that you have the power to change your reality. To what degree? I don't know, right? Like, I don't know the various like intersections of like power and privilege people have in their lives, right? You know, life could be different if you were raised middle class versus raised working class, right? City versus suburbia. But
Hmm.
I think the biggest thing that I've always tried to remember is that I can create my own reality as much as I can. Of course, there's some things that I can't control, but what are the things that I can control, right? What are the things that I can do in my life to make it better? That is what I focus on. That is the reality that I focus on making better. I cannot change capitalism, right? I cannot change who's in office or how the stock market
Hmm.
works, but like, I can make sure that the people I call my friends are amazing people and that I don't have toxic people in my life. That I can do.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess if I can boil this down, it's like change as much as your reality as you can. You don't have to live
Hmm.
if you're not happy with your life. You may not be able to change 100% of it, but what can you change? And focus on that.
Hmm. That's powerful. That's powerful. And as you started off the our chat by saying, right, identifying like the points where you can intervene, where you can invite in joy, where you can
Mhm.
prioritize your mental health, where you can connect with people who are supportive of you, where you can experience other worlds, whether that's through travel, right, tapping into your imagination, your creativity. I think is so important during these times. And as you
Mhm.
said, like community just being absolutely essential as we
Yeah.
see the systems kind of deteriorating. around us. Yes.
We might not have
Yes.
social security by the time we get to retirement age, you know? Like
That
our
is so
community is
true.
gonna have to be our social security because the way things are going,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who knows?
Yes. That is so true. And Shells, hello, says, I definitely feel like I'm on a loop. Yes. And so hopefully
Mm,
this conversation was helpful. And know that you're not the only one. Like so many of us, I'm still trying to turn down the volume, right,
mm-hmm,
on that loop, because it's been so deeply like drilled into us that this is what we're supposed to be seeking, this pathway, this very unchangeable, like inflexible
mm-hmm.
pathway that just does not resonate with so many of us because we're put here to do different things, right? We're not robots. And that's how we're often socialized within this society. And just being able to tap into your calling, I think, as much as you can and keep it alive and keep it active, because these systems want to try to turn it off, right? And make you question and doubt your gifts and abilities so often. Um, so, yes, as we're winding down, where people can follow you, connect with you on the
Yes.
internet. Mm-hmm.
I don't have social media. Still working on how I want to show up again. But follow me on Hey Von on YouTube. My Substack is Unbothered and Moisturized. It is moisturize.substack.com. There you can hear me talk my talk. You can read my words. I'm very much into building a community and building it imperfectly. I'm still trying to figure out how to kind of get my people, kind of get the people who I feel like will really identify with my content. But it's a journey, and I will figure it out. But I hope you guys are can come with me on this journey, and hopefully
Yeah.
invite other people as well who you feel may really find my
Yes.
content and my words and my life experiences helpful.
Yes. Yes. So please follow Vonnie on Substack. Again, Unbothered and Moisturized.
Yes.
Creme de la creme of Substack names. So thank you. Yes. And YouTube as well. Linked in the chat and the description section as well. And Vonnie will be a special guest presenter, speaker within my Black Women Freelancers community Tuesday, August 5th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific for Black women. Redefine success, reclaim joy. If you'd like to join, here's a link to join the community. Yes. And so I want to thank you so much for being here, for being an amazing guest, for sharing everything that you've shared so transparently. I think it
Mm,
was healing
you.
for a lot of us. Yeah, just to hear um, someone share their journey, right? In all its glory, right? Because social media has a way of really, I don't know, making things like appear fake so often, and I feel like that's on overdrive these
Yes.
days. And so this was a really refreshing conversation. So thank you so much for
Oh,
being
thank
here.
you. Like this, I tell you, one of my favorite internet people. I really hope to meet you one day in person. If you ever
Yeah.
message me, you know what? Why am I? I'm gonna WhatsApp you. I don't know why I'm gonna talk about it. Oh, I have your number. Ooh, but no, thank
Yeah.
you. This has been an honor. Like I love you so much, Marissa. You're just like a sweet,
Love
perfect
you
little baby
too.
angel, and like
Yeah.
anything for you, honestly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank y'all so much for being here and being in the chat, sharing everything that you shared. If you're watching the replay, please feel free to leave a comment. If anything resonated, please like this video so it's shared with other people. And please subscribe to Vonnie's channel, Hey Von, on YouTube, and my channel as well, Marissa Price Heals on YouTube. But other than that, I will see y'all next time. And I'll actually be live tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, I think, to talk about breath work for Black women. So, yes, tune in for that. And other than that, I'll see y'all later. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.